Basic med, third class, what medications can hose you in trying to get your pilot's license? We're going to find out in the hangar. Hi, and welcome to In the Hangar. I'm Dan Milliken.
And I'm Christy Wong. Today's episode is brought to you by our awesome sponsors, Colton Mortgage and Flying Eyes Optics.
All right, Christy, I'm very excited today because in the 6 seasons that we've done In the Hangar, I have tried and tried from season 1 to get a physician, an AME, in to answer some questions, and we finally did today.
Right. Well, I've been told that it's just because they're so busy. They can't get in because they're so busy helping patients.
You know what the really cool thing is?
What's that?
So we were scheduled to start this 30 minutes ago, and we made him wait.
Oh, my.
All right, so joining us today is Dr. Drew Sambell. Thank you so much, Dr. Drew.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
And you gave me my last medical, second class. So I'm just a second class.
Oh, second-class citizen.
I know, yeah.
Okay.
So, there are so many questions we have here, but before we launch into that, just a little bit about your background. Tell us about how you got into being a doctor, but also you fly. So let's hear about that.
All right. So listen, I'm from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I received my private pilot's license back in '92, all right? And then I got busy with my medical training. And I practiced urologic surgery for over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
A couple years ago, I made a decision to get back into flying more. That's my true love. I come from a big family of pilots. And so, yes, I started an aviation medical practice in Arlington. And I would say I've done it off and on over the years, but sometimes you get so busy, it's hard to do a good job at it. All right?
So you were a neurosurgeon.
No, urology.
Oh, urology.
Okay.
I thought neurology.
Wrong part of the body.
Urology, neurology. It's probably a good idea, and that's why I'm only a second-class medical.
Exactly.
So I did a ton of kidney stone surgery, okay, things like this.
Okay, well,
all right.
You probably are a really good friend to some people. Yeah.
Stop squirming, okay?
Yeah. All right, very good. So let's just launch into it. It used to be, well, I was going to say simple, but it's not. You had third class, second class, first class, but now through the efforts of organizations like AOPA, we do have basic med. And I don't quite understand. Can I, if I want to learn to fly and I want to be a student pilot and I need my medical, can I just go get a basic med?
No. So everybody needs a one-time, at least a third class medical to be eligible for basic med. And it has to be after 2006.
Your third class that you got.
So if I had gone and gotten, say, third class prior to 2006, I would actually have to get a third class or better after 2006 to qualify for basic med?
That is correct.
Okay.
Don't quote me on the exact date, but it's a roughly 2006.
You got it.
What was the problem basic med addressed?
Okay. So the aircraft owners community felt like there needed to be an alternative to third class for the third class medical. They felt that, hey, if you can have a driver's license, there's a certain percent of the population that's okay to fly. All right?
Right.
And so the AOPA really petitioned Congress to come up with an alternative to the third class. And they were successful. It came out in about 2017, and since then they have certified about 50,000 pilots with a basic med.
What are some of the disqualifiers from a third class that would then allow a person to have a basic med?
Okay. Well, it's a little bit complicated because according to 61.53 in the FAR, you must be aware of any medical condition that could potentially disqualify you from flying, all right? So that's when it gets a little bit tricky. And if you have a good family doctor that knows your medical history, they can sign off on your basic med, sometimes even easier than an AME can.
Right? Oh, so that's a big step. For the basic med, you can have it done by any physician, not just an AME.
That is correct.
Okay, so that's a big thing.
Basic meds are signed off by a pilot's personal doctor rather than an AME.
Okay, all right. What are some of the other kind of why you would go with a basic med over a third class?
I would say if you're extremely healthy and under the age of 40, it might be easier to get a third class medical. A third class medical under age 40 lasts 5 years.
Right.
All right. So once you go past 40, as you know, it's only good for 2 years. However, a basic med will last 4 years after the age of 40. All right.
Okay.
All right. And so you must get this comprehensive checklist. It's available on AOPA's website, and you must see a doctor to sign off on your medical history and your physical exam. All right. And then you must do a online medical education class, and you must do that every 24 calendar months. All right. And you have to do that every 24 months, and you must see your doctor every 48 months to qualify for basic med.
Here's a question for you, just regarding like first class, third class, because you mentioned that when you turn 40, it's the cutoff. It goes from 5 years to 2 years, right, on a third class medical. Well, let's say that you're 39 and you go and you get your third class, and then you turn 40 like 6 months later. Do you automatically then revert to the 2 years, or are you still good for those 5 years?
You're still good for those.
Oh,
5
really?
years.
I would have thought it would have been the other way.
I
Okay.
see a lot of pilots come in at age 39 to get that last physical.
And then they can come back at 44.
So hypothetically, if I was 39, for example,
yeah.
asking for a friend, and I go get my first class medical renewed next month, just saying, and then I turn 40 in August, I'm still good for the full year, or do I have to then revert back to the 6 months for a first class?
For a first class, you're still good for the 6 months for a first. Okay, no, you're still good for a whole year at age 39. Right?
Gotcha. So then I turn 40, my friend
Yeah,
turns
your friend.
40 in August. So my friend would then not have to go and get a medical again until that following, like, February.
Yeah, but that's about 6 months anyway. So
Well, no, because, so my friend's first class medical would be due in February. So my friend could go get their medical and then not have to go back for another year, even though my
Correct,
friend
right.
turns 40 in August.
right.
I'm asking for Dan.
Yeah.
So,
Because I'm going to turn 40 soon.
exactly. Yeah. You can tell by the beard.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's turn now to some of the biggest problems that GA pilots face as far as medications.
Sure.
What are some of the hot ones?
All right, so you have your first-time pilot coming in, and he's taking an ADHD medicine, or has a history in the last few years of taking ADHD medicines. I'm sure you see this as a flight instructor sometimes. History of attention deficit disorder, all right? And that's considered a no-no in the eyes of the FAA. So you need to be careful. I encourage everybody to be honest, but the key thing is to educate yourself before you go to your AME or before you go to your doctor, even to have a basic med signed off, and educate what medicines are a go and what are no-go medicines or no-fly medicines. All right, and the AOPA has a very good website to educate pilots about
Well,
this.
I'll tell you this. So I was 49 when I became a student pilot, and I didn't know anything. And back then, of course, we had to get third class. There was no basic med. But I joined AOPA as a student, and I had some medicines, and I was a little bit worried about it. So before I went to an AME, I was able to call that AOPA medical hotline that they have, and it was extremely helpful.
Very good.
Yeah, so I encourage everybody to do that.
You can save a lot of time by doing that and preparing yourself, bringing in the required information, because if your AME has to defer your medical, you are thrown into a file of other pilots, and the FAA in Oklahoma City is really behind in looking at that pool of pilots.
Oh, it could take months.
It could take months, and they will eventually get to you. But if you have every document in there that you need to make them feel like you're good to go, you will save yourself a lot of time on that second letter that comes back to you saying, we need more information.
Okay. So we've overcome those hurdles. We've been able to achieve our third or first class medical. What are some of the obstacles in actually keeping a medical at this point?
keeping your medical, hey, it's about healthy living. Okay? There's most young pilots are very healthy, okay? So I would say a very young pilot in his 20s needs to, worry about risk management, okay? Just like your mom said, don't stay out after midnight. You're probably going to get in a car accident or get in trouble. And then as you get older, it really pays to see your physician once a year, around age 50 as a male, as a female, even younger than that, okay?
Oh, oof.
Okay?
Even younger.
All right? And furthermore, to establish that relationship with your doctor so they really understand your medical conditions and they can really help you signing off on your basic med or, helping you work with your AME to get certified, keep your certification.
How big of a problem is it for aviation safety these days? Are we seeing a lot of pilots, dropping dead of heart attacks and while they're flying or anything like that?
I would say we're doing a much better job. I would compare it to the general population that drives down the highway. We lose 40,000 people on our roads every year driving a car. And I don't know the stats in aviation, but it's nowhere near that. Okay, I think there's been several years amongst commercial aviators where we haven't lost a single passenger or pilot, okay, in the airline industry. But in general aviation, we're always trying to get better. And the task is trying to identify the group of pilots that are at risk and then also letting everybody decide, hey, I'm healthy. I think I'm good. I'm healthy enough to fly. And that's where the basic med comes out. Work with your doctor and get a good physical exam and see if you're eligible for basic med.
Okay. All right, what I'd like to do at this point is open it up for some question and answers, Q&A from our audience. So for the audience, go ahead and step up to the microphone, as it were, and we're going to ask your medical questions. So, all right, first set.
All right, thank you. So I also have a friend who's about 38 and just got third class medical. So I'm also considering going to a doctor soon and getting some checkups, not because of anything necessarily health related, but because of family history type stuff. But in thinking about going to do that, I also realized the pressure of what if, right? It's the pressure of if something comes up, does that put my license at risk? So I'm just curious if you have any advice or if you have any thoughts about people going through that same thing of, I don't want to get checked up. I don't want to address a health concern that I know I have, but if I go to the doctor, I have the fear that I might lose my license. Because even though I'm committed to being healthy and all that, I felt it.
Sure.
And I know that people feel it more than I do.
Okay. So I think there's an element of paranoia amongst everybody when dealing with the FAA. So I would say this, hey, call up your AME and say, hey, could I come in for a 1-hour consult? And could I talk to you about something that's I'm concerned with in my past? And for instance, a very common life story, somebody gets divorced, somebody loses a loved one, and you have a situation of depression in your life that resolved inside of 6 months, all right? But maybe you took a medicine during that 6 months. Hey, come in, talk about it. The doctor can tell you, okay, if you bring in this documentation, we can help you get your medical very quickly versus that other guy that's going to come in unprepared. So call your doctor, call your AME, say, hey, can I come in for a consult only? And we really like that because we really like you walking out with your ticket. All right?
Great, thank you.
Does that mean if that they come in for a consult that it's not on the books, as it were?
Correct. We're not going to submit anything to the FAA.
Okay, so it's not on your medical record if you came in and just for a consult.
Yes. We're not going to break the rules, but we're going to prepare you so we can get you your ticket much faster.
Okay, very good. All right, next question.
You have a friend in the room with a Coke habit, well, a Diet Coke habit. Could that affect his medical?
Oh man, that was brutal.
Hey, Diet Coke, has the equivalent of 1 cup of coffee per 12-ounce can. So unless you're drinking 10 of those,
Dan, you may have a problem.
right? okay?
It's time
Well-
for an intervention.
Yeah, I'll do it when Mike Patey does it. He's just as bad as I am.
But listen, sometimes you bring up a question about, sometimes it's not the drug, let's call caffeine a drug, but it's the condition you're taking the drug for. So if you're drinking 10 Diet Cokes during the day because you're not sleeping well at night, maybe you have sleep apnea, all right? All right, so something like this.
Well, I can drink I wish it was 10. I could drink the 10 Diet Cokes a day and have no problem sleeping at night.
Okay.
It's time for a consult, Dan.
Okay, well, all right. Let's get the next question. Let's move along. So,
I'm a 56-year-old pilot, and I have a Class 3 now. And this week, I'm actually going to get my Class 2. What is the difference between the standards from a Class 3 to a Class 2? And with that being said, I take a levothyroxine, and on my original Class 3, they said that could be a disqualifying factor. But I was just wondering if that's going to affect my Class 2.
Okay. So, as you know, a Class 2 is for your commercial flyers. You're flying for hire at that point. So you're going to get a little bit more scrutiny from the FAA. And basically, the main difference is the vision standards. Think of a Class 3 or a basic med. You really have to possess a driver's license. And at the driver's license office, you have to pass their vision test. So that's 20/40 at 20 feet and 20/40 at 16 inches. So it's really not that bad. And then obviously a Class 2 is only good for 1 year. I think you referenced a thyroid medication, and people that take thyroid medications, you just want to be ready to tell them why you're on that medicine. Do you have a history of having your thyroid removed for cancer, or is it just plain hypothyroidism? All right, and usually that's very easily to certify with.
Okay.
You
Thank you.
usually walk out of the office with your ticket.
Thank you.
all right. So, and 1.2, with the Class 2 medical, it's good for 1 year. But after that 1 year, it reverts to a third class for another year, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, just want to make sure.
After age 40.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there is a common misconception between a Class 1 and a Class 2. People think that your Class 1 will revert to a Class 2. It actually doesn't do that,
It
right?
reverts to a Class 3.
Exactly. Because the time limit is effectively the same except for a couple of minor differences.
Right. Correct. If you're over the age of 40 and you have a Class 1 medical, you're going to need an EKG every year, okay? So that's why it can't, revert.
Well, you got 10 years for that, so. All right.
So the last couple of years, there's been a lot of ups and downs considering COVID. And I'm just curious if that has changed AME's perspective or the process at all, even if there may not necessarily be anything on the books. Has that changed the mentality of the AME process or considerations?
Okay, good question. So COVID amongst pilot population hasn't created any problems with certifying pilots in mind. In the very beginning, they granted everybody a 6-month extension automatically. So, boy, we about went broke during that 6 months, all right? But listen, the basic, if you had COVID and you were not hospitalized, there's no issue with you certifying again. You really have to get quite sick. And the FAA really becomes interested if you are admitted to a hospital and you receive intensive care in an intensive care unit. That's when they really want to see all the records and what happened. As far as vaccine, I would encourage everybody to talk to your doctor about the vaccine, all right? I haven't seen any problems with pilots getting vaccinated, okay? But talk to your doctor, do what's the right thing for you. You get a lot of risk out there walking through airports, and depending on your medical condition, the coronavirus can really hurt you if you have some risk factors. So be careful.
Thank you.
Well, and that answered one of my last questions I had for you is, had you had any experience with, like, especially the Class 1 people that this is their livelihood,
Right.
With any kind of adverse effects from the vaccine that caused them to now be off the line for
That's
period
right.
of time.
Yes, there's a lot of airline pilots that have received the vaccine without problems, but boy, that there are 5% of them that have been very hesitant about receiving the vaccine. And a lot of them have received some medical exemptions, religious exemptions, and the airlines have also had to back off because there's a shortage of pilots and they need those guys in the workforce. So, yeah. It's another area where as an AME, I've been able to help pilots. I've written several letters for people that have valid medical reasons for not receiving the vaccine, and I've helped them out. Okay?
Nice. Okay, any other questions? Nope. All right, well, Dr. Drew, thank you so much for coming on, and I actually need to get back to you because I need to redo that second. So, well, you'll be seeing me soon. And that was somebody else about the Diet Cokes, so.
Well, it's
As a
been my
friend of a
pleasure.
friend.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you so much.
And thank you guys for watching. And if you have any questions, post them in the comments below, and then we'll see what we can do about answering them. Of course, I'm not a doctor, but, we'll see. And if you like the show, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next time.
In the hangar.